So I think it's pretty hilarious what's going on with the Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows and how this particular video game is being utilized as a method of pushing not only just their own ideology, which we've seen Ubisoft tout this over and over and over again, to the point where they now have to essentially apologize every single time they speak to the Japanese. But now apparently they're trying to desperately tell people that, hey, you don't have to play as Yasuke. Yeah, that whole legendary samurai thing that we were trying to get you excited about. Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to play as Yasuke. You could avoid playing as Yasuke. You could just play as Naoe. They're trying to convince you that Yasuke is so optional, even though he's not, because they've already admitted that to complete the game, you have to play as Yasuke at some point throughout the video game. They're still trying to tell you this now because the video game is about to release in a month and they're trying to do damage control. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I think people would have a little bit less of an issue if Yasuke was 100% optional in this video game, but ultimately it comes down to you choosing to pick Yasuke, a figure in history that has little to no historical context, versus actual samurai that were around Oda Nobunaga's time period, and you could have utilized them. You could have utilized to tell them a actual true to Japan story, something that a lot of people would be interested in seeing and connecting with, but unfortunately you went the route of Yasuke because of obvious reasons. So let's get into this article from That Park Plays. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, it says Ubisoft desperately tells players that they can skip playing as Black Samurai Yasuke for any reason in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Ubisoft appears to be making a last-ditch effort to salvage Assassin's Creed Shadows, now telling players that they can skip playing as Yasuke, the game's controversial Black Samurai protagonist, for any reason. This phrasing, used by creative director Jonathan Dumont in a recent interview with Screen Rant, has many interpreting it as Ubisoft quietly acknowledging the widespread dissatisfaction with Yasuke's inclusion and trying to placate frustrated fans. Now, again, I'm telling you right now, it's been admitted already, so I don't really know what this guy's talking about, but it has been admitted that in order to complete the game, you have to play as Yasuke. So do not fall for this nonsense about, oh, Yasuke is optional. Sure, he might be optional 80% of the time, 85% of the time, but you still have to play as Yasuke in order to complete the game. And I'm not talking from an achievement standpoint. I'm talking from a game standpoint. You have to play as Yasuke at some point of the game, and you have to go out there and Hulk smash Asians as fucking Yasuke in order to complete the game. So this whole lie about, oh, it's optional, whatever, do not believe that nonsense, because it's not. In an interview, Dumont assured players they could focus on playing as either protagonist in a game while ignoring the other without missing out on core gameplay. Very key words, core gameplay, but not core story. I don't think you're missing out on things too much, Dumont said regarding skipping one of the game's primary protagonists. I think it's more on your preference to say, okay, I'll see how the game will adapt a little bit to the character if you choose one over the other. But it was his next line that raised eyebrows. If you prefer one character for any reason, you can play quite a bit of the game using one of them, he said. This seemingly innocuous phrase has drawn significant attention, given the ongoing backlash surrounding Yasuke's inclusion. Many see it as Ubisoft's veiled attempt to address the controversy without directly confronting it. For critics, it reads as Ubisoft offering players an easy way to avoid playing as a character whose presence has sparked months of debate. So again, I want to be very clear. If you prefer to play as one character for any reason, you can play quite a bit of the game using one of them. That is not the entire game. So you're going to see people out there try, especially shills, they're going to be like, oh, you can just avoid Yasuke if you want to. That's not true at all. You can avoid Yasuke for a part of the game. You cannot avoid Yasuke for the entire game. You're going to have to play as Yasuke at some point in order to complete the game, especially to complete the story. You might be able to enjoy the core gameplay, as he puts it, with Naoe for the most part, but you're still going to have to use Yasuke at some point in order to complete the game. Then it says that Naoe offers a classic Assassin's Creed experience focused on stealth, reminiscent of early franchise entries and the recent Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yasuke, on the other hand, embodies the more aggressive, action-heavy combat style seen in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Dumont clarified that while both characters have their own quest lines, the bulk of the game can be played with either protagonist. This announcement comes amid a tidal wave of backlash Ubisoft has faced over Shadows, much of it centered on the inclusion of Yasuke Yasuke as a main protagonist. Fans have long clamored for an Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan, but many expected a traditional Japanese samurai or ninja lead. Ubisoft's decision to spotlight Yasuke, a historical figure with limited documented influence in Japan's history, was seen as prioritizing modern ideological trends over historical authenticity, because that's exactly what it was. As much as people want to try to fight it, including Yasuke as the main character in the method of which they chose to include him was very much DEI oriented. Obviously, there has been there's been other Japanese samurai video games that have featured Yasuke as a character, usually some sort of side character or an NPC or something along those lines, but they never reference him as a legendary samurai. They'll reference him as like samurai of legend, which by the way means usually something totally different, but they'll reference him as something that is basically kind of like a folklore character where people know of him, but who he is and who he is, how he's represented is usually exacerbated. But for the most part, he's never represented as a full-on, hardcore, actual samurai to the likes of Oda Nobunaga. He's usually showcased in armor that is reminiscent of samurais, but he's not actually a samurai. The Japanese know how to represent Yasuke properly, and the Western studios do not. The Western studios ran with Thomas Lockley's story, which has been proven to be false. He himself has edited the Wikipedia page, and then he ran the story and made it into something as if he was just doing research. But ultimately, everything that people know about Yasuke in the Western world is completely and utterly false. Everything they know about Yasuke or think they know came from Thomas Lockley's book. Even if they watched or read something that wasn't from Thomas Lockley, I guarantee you that information was influenced from Thomas Lockley. So Lockley started the entire chain of nonsense regarding Yasuke, and then before you knew it, it became this thing that it never was. Then it says the controversy surrounding Yasuke's inclusion isn't the only issue that has plagued Shadows. Ubisoft has faced repeated backlash over historical inaccuracies and culturally insensitive depictions. Now, okay, so let's talk about this now. Assassin's Creed has never been 100% historically accurate. There is no such thing for a video game, right? There's no video game that's ever going to be historically accurate because, quite frankly, the gameplay loop is going to require that you bend the rules a little bit. However, you could try to be as respectful to history as you possibly can. I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is probably one of the best examples of that, while also not being 100% historically accurate. So this particular video game, unfortunately, is getting a lot of backlash because they advertised it as historically accurate. I think it's the same reason that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was getting their backlash. They advertise it as historically accurate, and when you do that, that limits the ways that you can kind of dance around the rules. That limits the ways that you can get out of a situation that you're eventually going to put yourself in when you advertise your game as historically accurate and then people call you out on the bullshit. So I think at this point, man, the whole conversation about Assassin's Creed Shadows has been blown up to the point where now Yasuke is just going to be ignored by the majority of players just out of protest. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Imagine making a video game where you include this character that you think everybody's going to eat up as DEI slop, only for it to get completely destroyed in the public eye for over a year now. And then on top of that, when the character actually comes out, the majority of players are going to ignore Yasuke. The only ones who are going to play as Yasuke are either going to be streamers looking for a funny, or certain people that are looking to have power fantasies as role-playing as a black guy absolutely destroying Asian people in the streets. I mean, that's really the only people going to play as Yasuke. I mean, have you seen what Yasuke is capable of? The man is Superman. He has a kick ability that knocks people yards away into walls. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is the power fantasy of the liberal person. I'm telling you, this is what they've been waiting for the longest time, to role play as an extremely powerful 6-foot+ tall black guy who's just going to be beating up Asians in the street, destroying unarmed Asian women who are pregnant. Like, this is the power fantasy that a lot of people are going to be playing using Yasuke. But for the most part, it's just streamers that are going to be using Yasuke because it's going to be funny at the end of the day, and that's basically it. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it if you could like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.